The £5 is in the post, Naomi, because you said something critical for me. Data is where it all starts. If you've got the data, you can turn it into insights, actionable insights, you can go and make things better, which sets up our next speaker really nicely. Let me introduce Pete Nisbet, Managing Partner of edenseven.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. My name is Pete Nisbet. I'm Managing Partner at edenseven. We're part of the Cambridge Managing Consultancy Group. And I want to talk to you around data, as John's alluded to. Also, how important it is around sustainability solutions and strategy development, but also then linking that into the EV world as well. So, a sustainability strategy, and it's important to talk about this linking it into the EV strategies, are made up of hundreds of component parts. I've been speaking to a number of people already today around the amount of projects and programs of work that are involved in delivering a net zero strategy. It can get quite complicated. But what you actually need to be doing is really thinking about those ones that you want to go for. You can call it the low-hanging fruit. You can call it the ones that have the biggest impact and the biggest improvement on performance. Your criteria to performance and execution may be different from others. It might be financially led, it might be environmentally led, or it might be social value led. But what we see when we're talking to lots of organisations is that there's a general lack of data. And that scares people off in moving forward because you want to really, at the outset, you want to be able to measure it, forecast it, and then ultimately model it. What you do need to get is accurate data and auditable data as well. Understand what you've actually said and actually what you've actually done. It's amazing how the mind can drift from a decision that you made 6 months ago to the outcome of what you've actually looked at. And it's always good to go back in time and really understand that. So have an audit process associated to that. There are inevitably multiple platforms. Businesses have been around for many years and they've got established systems. Bringing that information together is really quite important and doing it in a coordinated fashion. Now, you don't need to be perfect from day one. So you don't need to worry about that. We talk to a lot of organisations around Scope 3. It's the biggest emissions factor that everyone has to deal with. It's about 70 to 90% of all emissions. You've got to put your foot on the first step of that mountain and start to move through the gears slowly but surely. Your data maturity will increase over time, but don't panic. It takes time. There is also increased regulation. No matter whether you're in the private or the public sector, regulation is coming and it's getting tighter. There is a need for it as well. It's making sure that people can't get away with making large statements without having too much evidence to it. So there's a need for it, but what it does do, it really does deliver change and makes you honest to yourselves and make sure you're reporting in the appropriate way. The other thing is that sustainability teams are struggling. They're struggling to get sign-off with their key stakeholders. Now, that can come down to a number of things. I've not met a sustainability person or professional that says that they've got loads of time. They've got loads of time on their hand and they don't know what to do with it. There is a resourcing issue here, and therefore by bringing all the information together, it's really important. It will save time, and this is what's got to happen. Bring it together, save time, improve the decision-making process. Now, the decision-making process, whether we like it or not, senior stakeholders have got hundreds of things to do on a weekly basis. So what you need to do is bring this information together in a way that they can make a decision. The easiest thing to do when you've got lots of information and you're sitting there and it's all very technical is to say no. And we see that quite regularly. So you've got to bring this information together in a way that your decision makers can make a decision and not say no, and then you have to wait another 3 months for your quarterly review. So our feeling is that there are two ways, and particularly when we're talking around EVs here, is bringing together all of that information into a sustainability management platform, and I'll come on to this in a second, and also utilising some of the expertise and real expertise in delivering EV solutions. As Naomi was suggesting, there's a lot of focus on data, and we'll come into that. But you need to really think about what you're doing and do it in a coordinated fashion, because it will save you money over time. So what is a sustainability management platform? It is one that brings together all your programs of work to get to net zero. It brings together all of those elements that you have, all of the projects that you may well have in place. It looks at what your current position is and how you're going to transition through that. We see this as a really important process, and this is where at Eden7, we're very much invested in this. Zero.Earth is a platform that we've had Innovate UK funding. We're one of the 7 flagship investment programs that Innovate UK have funded to deliver a dynamic mapping platform that will allow you to move from what we call a flat reporting, which is just there is your number, to understanding what the changes you're making and the impact that those changes are having on your business. When you're starting to talk about EVs in this space, it's bringing, let's say, the buildings expert and the transport expert into the same room, because one of those can have an impact on the other. If you're going to put lots of charging points in, guess what? You're probably going to be charging some of those at work, and therefore you're going to have a look at the capacity that was talked about earlier on. So bringing it together and making sure you're looking at this in an interdependent way rather than independent. And that is one of the key problems that we see within delivering of net zero strategies, is that they're not all connected and not brought together. So dynamic project management is a key thing that we think is really important. It also allows key decision makers to understand when they say you cannot have that CapEx spend, they can see the immediate impact that it has on it. And there's audit trails to it. I mentioned it at the start, but it's hugely important. You have to be able to go back to where you said and where you made that decision and see if the result was effective or not. Because there's no point in repeating on something that's not delivering on what you said. And also, sustainability management platforms are expanding out. They're now looking at waste, water, nature-based solutions and social value, which we know is very important within the public sector. We're seeing more and more of this within Europe, within their response to the CSRD requirements, and this is where the UK is definitely moving into. So it allows you to have that information all at hand. Now, moving on to EVs. Now, I'm very happy that Naomi said infrastructure is very important, because it is. And it's not necessarily about the vehicles. The vehicles are advancing. I know there was a point made around the vans. They need to start to expand out. But over the last 7 years, there's been a 7-fold increase in the amount of vehicles that are available for EVs. The range is increasing. It's moving through to 250, I think, 250 to 275 average range. So the range should not be a problem. But the infrastructure really is the important part. And obviously you've got the driver awareness part, but it all comes down to the data. And looking at the data and understanding, this is going to save you a lot of money. We recently worked with a police force within the UK who came to us and said, we think that our CapEx spend to bring in EVs across our network is going to be between 4 and 10 to 12 million pounds. We did the analysis and we looked at this. The number was more like 1.5 million pounds. Why was that? Well, 97% of all their journeys were below, on average, 150 miles a day. 72% of those journeys went to a maximum of less than 200 miles a day. So going back to the fact that ranges are at 250, that takes a huge slice of that network or of that fleet out of the system, and means that you do not need to worry about the rapid charging. So you've got to really think about the structures. A lot of organizations at the moment are going, I need EVs, I need it charged tomorrow. In 20 minutes. What you can do, there's a longer dwell time that you need to be taken into account. So the infrastructure part is really important, and it's the thing that will save you loads of money. And no doubt, when you're starting to move numbers of 4 to 10 to 12 million pounds, when that first lands on a senior stakeholder's desk, they go, we're not doing it. But actually, when you start to say there's some granularity to this, and you can understand where the charging is, and you can understand the program of deployment, that makes it a far more appetizing process to go through. So, got to start to think differently. So I was quite surprised by this, but the average car is driven 3% of its time, which is quite remarkable, really. 75% parked at home, 22% away. This starts to build your picture of when you're looking at what you need to do around the electrification of your fleet. You've got to look at the data. If you don't have the data, you can use proxies. But then you start to build a real understanding around the cost benefit here. You know, the EVs do save money. But when you're looking at the charging network and the charging way you charge and bringing in that driver awareness that you were talking about earlier is really important. You can see by the charging rates there that there is a huge difference between an EV tariff and a rapid charger. Now, it's very easy to start to talk about, well, we wouldn't have done that in the past. Well, I know I work with an ex-CPO who will tell me that when he was talking around his diesel fleet, they wouldn't allow them to fill up at the petrol stations on the motorway. So what it is, it's talking about driver behavior and it's trying to say, if you are going to go through this process and you want to rapid charge, that's going to cost us a lot of money. So start to think about that driver behavior, and it's amazing what change and what savings can be made there. And once you do that, then the operational impact can drop off. So if you're really not charging in the day because you don't need to, you're saving operational costs as well. What it does do around the minimizing the capacity. Now, you know, 2050 is a long way away from getting to net zero from a UK point of view. But to get to net zero, they're anticipating the network's going to have to go threefold increase. So if everybody comes to the network for rapid charge and increased capacity, then it's going to make a big, it's going to put a lot of strain on our network and it's going to cost a lot of money. So take that into account. And also be aware of connected solutions and thinking about the future. Being able to deploy these assets into the grid as that technology advances. I can feel that John is moving. So what we're saying is, solve it as an EV, don't solve it as an ICE. And bring together these 4 component parts. Think about bringing together a sustainable management platform. It will improve the process, your compliance requirements, consolidate your data into one space. And when you're looking at the EVs, take a data-led approach. It's boring. We're being consistent in the way that we're talking. It will save you money, ultimately. So that's me. But likewise, we're upstairs. More than happy to take on further conversations later on.